my feeling about people and a theatrical experience is that I know some people find it hard to suspend their disbelief with musicals. A well constructed musical always moves the plot along, uh, continues to move the story along, and it is an extenuation of one's speaking voice to the sung voice. And many people just have a hard time with that, with buying into that reality. So it's hard. I don't want to push any square pegs into any round holes with anybody. If musical theater ain't your bag, then it just ain't your bag. If it is, and you have considerations because, well, you've heard that Footloose, doesn't have the best this or best that. Well, it does have Kenny Loggins music, and that's a plot. But try to abandon those considerations and give Footloose a shot. The music is wonderful, no denying. And it opens with that number, that Kenny Loggins number, and then you're off to the races. And so many other tunes in there, and heartfelt tunes, not just hardcore rock and roll. But there's some very lovely, sweet, heartfelt tunes as well. And I would just ask that you give it a shot. I don't want to force anybody into anything. But if you're looking for a fun evening in the musical theater, you can come here to the Simi Valley Performing Arts Center and see our production of Footloose. And I guarantee you'll probably take the ride. Hi, this is Barry Pearl. I'm one of the directors of Footloose that's playing at the Simi Valley Cultural Arts Center, also known as the Simi Valley Performing Arts Center. Please come on out and enjoy our wonderful production. You can find all kinds of information and also listen to this new podcast where all the information about Footloose be revealed. Hope you'll join us very soon. Everybody, cut Footloose. I didn't want to do Footloose, quite honestly. I wasn't very taken by the book, loved the music. And I figured that Michelle Elkin, who is my choreographer for 13, she could really kick it. I had no doubt, but I thought, I'm not crazy about this script. The story is substantive, but I didn't fall in love with the script. But given the time and really sort of delving into it and beginning to mine it, and then going through the casting and coming up with these amazing people, talented folks, I mean, blew me away, and I started getting really now stoked. So combining Michelle's expertise with these very brilliant paints, and then saying, Michelle, I want you to co-direct with me because I don't know about my time, and I still am just kind of this side of being committed. So just in case I might change my mind, I need you to be there for me. And then one thing led to another, and I got deeper and deeper. I fell deeper and deeper in love with the piece and knew that we could do justice to the story, that it wasn't just going to be a piece of fluff. And when I was convinced that I could do that, I then dove headfirst into the whole experience. And that's when it all began to really take form. So the story of Footloose centers around, I would say the essence of it deals with loss, the loss of a father, the loss of a father losing a son, and of a son losing a father. The father who loses a son to a horrible car accident. And the son who loses his father is a loss through divorce, even though that divorced father also loses a son. And of course, the son who passes has lost not only his father, but he's lost everybody. And the town in which our hero must move to from Chicago, from a great metropolis like Chicago, to this fictitious southern town called Beaumont. Not Beaumont, Texas, but Beaumont spelled Bomont, but it does take place in the South. He has moved there because his aunt and uncle live there, because the father has walked out on him and his mother. So they turn to the aunt and uncle who live in Beaumont. They take them in. But this town is rather backwards. and it's backwards and is stuck by virtue of the fact that the father who has lost the son is a reverend. And he, having lost his son to what he believes to be um, alcohol and music, dance, he deprives the entire community from celebrating via dance and song. He feels that if he can't somehow rise above all of this, if he is going to remain depressed, then the whole town is going to remain so. So he sort of rules the roost, and he doesn't allow people to dance. And he has the backing of his board, the board of what do you call it? The board of directors, if you will, the town hall people, and they all support him in his. They enable him in this rather sad situation, and they too are depressed by the whole thing. And our hero, Ren, is his name, Ren McCormack, who's moved to this town, doesn't believe that this exists. So he decides to help to reform these antiquated rules about dancing and singing. And he helps the Reverend to see the light. So, I did watch the movie, and I remember enjoying the movie at the time and really loving Kevin Bacon's work. And even the movie, though, doesn't really hold up. A lot of holes in the film. But I didn't let that influence me. I knew that we could mine it properly and tell the story. And I believe we have done that. But I think it's a story of loss. But interestingly enough, and I mentioned this in my director's notes, and I mentioned this to the cast too, Dean Pitchford's foreword, the author's notes, suggests that anytime we read the word dancing in the script, we should think to ourselves, forgiveness. And it is also very much about forgiveness. For the Reverend forgiving the universe for dealing him such a bad hand, and Ren forgiving his father for leaving them, basically, so he could blow the charge on that. And I believe that the characters, they accomplish that through their ups and downs and ins and outs. And I personally, I grew up without a father. My parents were divorced when I was a year old. So I didn't get to really bond with my father. I knew my father in later years, and he was a part of my life. But it was tough because I didn't bond with him as I did with my mother and my three aunts and grandmother. So there was a loss there, but it wasn't the kind of loss that Ren feels because he spent so many years with his father before his father walked out on them. In my case, it was sort of natural to grow up in this matriarchy, but still a loss nonetheless because all my pals had fathers as well as mothers. So I can relate to this a bit as well. That helped pull me into the experience. I believe that we're always battling elements that are suppressing us. And when it comes to something like music and dance, that those disciplines, that particular art that lifts one, even rap. I mean, even the kind of rap that I don't care for so much, that slams authorities, that slams police, that uses the language that it uses because it's coming from an angry place, but that anger is not unfounded. So I can allow for that expression. It deserves to be framed as art because it's a cry. It has relevance. So I think that anybody that suppresses any form of expression, it needs to be called out. So Footloose does that. It calls out the suppression of by this board, by these individuals, suppressing these people's need to be lifted from their misery. And I think that the people that the elders here sort of want to stay stuck in that. I think it's a classic universal story. That it happens day in and day out, and it doesn't seem to be going away. So we continue to rail against that particular machine. And I think that's why it has relevance. And there's a universal element there where whether it's music and dance, freedom of all kind, whatever the expression is, that it shouldn't be suppressed. One should have the right to freely express themselves. I think that's at the core of it all. That it is not just for kids. Just 13 suffered from the same thing. 13 was very much about adults, not just the 13-year-olds that performed the piece. Because the essence of that piece is that we all have a little more homework to do. And it's funny, the parallels between 13 and Footloose, because Footloose too, all of those adults, and even the young ones that are that sort of don't know any better, that are being led by the noses, the collective nose around, by the collective nose, by the elders. They sort of don't know any better, and they want to do right and behave, listen to their folks until this rebel comes along and helps them to see the light. How dancing is the bad thing, but that the adults, they have to be re-educated. It's not such a bad thing. What could be bad about? And what's interesting is that, again, we deal with a reverend who's lost his son, and our hero Ren comes at him by way of the Bible, where he says in Ecclesiastics, people are they're supposed to leap and dance. The Bible says that we are to leap and dance. So he brings that up, and I think that's what really speaks to the reverend, really makes him, not initially, but eventually, helps him to see the light because he's speaking the reverend's language, if you will. We want to do this more and more. We want to do it in larger venues. We'd like to do original pieces. It's tough to do original pieces because audiences are hesitant to spend their money on something that is unknown. They want to go to see old chestnuts. Many of them do. But it's also a matter of educating and re-educating our audiences. And we want to be able to do that with new people. We have a whole stock of new pieces that we'd love to do, but we roll the dice because we also don't want, to go into the poorhouse and do an original piece and not have anybody come. It's a gamble, roll of the dice, So stay tuned, folks, because we'd like to bring you new theater as well as the chestnuts. Hi, I'm Barry Pearl. I co-direct a production of Footloose with Michelle Elkin, who also choreographs and is produced by Panic Productions and my company and my wife's company, BarCinBoo Productions. And we'd love for you to come out to see Footloose. It's a fun, terrific evening in the theater. You'll be able to escape into the music of Kenny Loggins and the choreography of the spectacular Michelle Elkin. Come to see our marvelous cast, headed by Thomas Whitcomb and Hannah Battersby, and a whole score of wonderful, talented ensemble folks. You will not be disappointed. We promise you that you will go out humming the tune. I promise you. And stay tuned because Panic Productions and BarCinBoo Productions have more coming your way. And please come out to support us at the Simi Valley Performing Arts Center in Simi Valley. You can get tickets at Thundertix. You can go on to Facebook and look me up, look Panic Productions up. You can find the websites there, the links there, and I believe that the link will be posted here on this podcast. You'll have all the information you need to buy your tickets. We have already opened. We opened on April 22nd. We will play weekends through May 14th. So come out and support the theater. We're here for you. We're here to make you happy and tap your toes. And everybody, cut foot loose.